Alright, let's talk about something big. No, not a giant inflatable duck, though that would be more fun. We're talking about a piece of legislation that has dominated the news cycle. A bill so massive its supporters gave it the ridiculously modest name, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And while its formal name was stripped away at the last minute, a fun bit of legislative trolling, its impact is very, very real. After a dramatic, nail-biting vote in the Senate on July 1, 2025, where the vice president had to cast the tie-breaking vote, this bill is now the biggest political story in America. It's a legislative behemoth that promises to reshape the American economy for years to come, which is exactly why everyone, from your uncle who loves cable news to your cousin who only gets news from TikTok, is talking about it. So why all the fuss? Well, imagine the government decided to remodel the entire country's financial house all at once. That's essentially what this bill tries to do. It touches everything: the taxes you pay, the support families get, the money seniors live on, and the rules businesses have to follow. Supporters, led by President Trump, are hailing it as a revolutionary blueprint for American prosperity, a supercharger for the economy that will put more money in the pockets of hardworking people. They see it as a long overdue course correction. On the other side, critics are sounding every alarm bell they can find, warning that it's a reckless gamble that will explode the national debt and pull the rug out from under the most vulnerable Americans. This isn't just a simple disagreement over a few percentage points here and there. It represents two fundamentally different visions for the country's future. One side sees a landscape of booming businesses, secure families, and a stronger nation. The other sees a future burdened by crippling debt, a frayed social safety net, and worsening inequality. The bill passed the Senate by the slimmest possible margin, a 50-50 tie broken by the vice president, which tells you just how deeply divided the country and its leaders are on this issue. Now, as it heads to the House for a final vote, the stakes couldn't be higher, making it absolutely crucial for everyone to understand what's actually packed inside this legislative giant. The debate is fierce because the proposed changes are not small tweaks. We're talking about trillions of dollars being moved around, which will create clear winners and losers. For some, this bill is a golden ticket, promising permanent tax relief and new financial support. For others, it's a threat, potentially leading to the loss of health coverage or vital assistance. Even powerful figures like Elon Musk have jumped into the fray, publicly opposing the bill and threatening political consequences, which in turn sparked a pro-Trump pack to fight back. This is more than just politics. It's a high-stakes battle over the economic soul of America, and its outcome will affect your life, my life, and the lives of millions for the next decade and beyond. So, let's pop the hood and see what's actually inside this thing. The centerpiece of the bill is a massive tax overhaul. Think back to the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Many of those cuts for individuals were temporary and set to expire. This bill says nope, let's make them permanent. This means the lower income tax rates that many people have gotten used to would stick around for good. For businesses, the corporate tax rate would remain low, and a popular rule allowing them to immediately deduct the full cost of new equipment, a policy called full expensing, would also become permanent. It's basically the 2017 tax cuts on steroids, designed to be a permanent feature of the American economy. But it's not just about making old cuts permanent. The bill also introduces new benefits aimed directly at families and seniors. For parents, the child tax credit is getting a boost, increasing to $2,200 per child, and importantly, becoming fully refundable. This means that even families who don't earn enough to pay income taxes can still receive the full credit as a cash payment, which is a significant change. Tipped workers and those who earn overtime pay also get a new tax deduction. For seniors, there's a brand new $6,000 universal deduction on retirement income, which could provide welcome relief for millions of retirees. And for those living in high-tax states, the very unpopular $10,000 cap on deducting state and local taxes, also known as SALT, is being temporarily raised to $40,000 for 5 years. The bill also directs a fire hose of money towards specific national priorities. The military is set to receive an extra $150 billion for modernization efforts, which supporters argue is critical for national security. A hefty $46 billion is allocated for border security, which includes funding for physical barriers, new technology, and more immigration court resources. Beyond security, there are also significant domestic investments. Rural hospitals, which have been struggling for years, will see their dedicated fund doubled to $50 billion. And our nation's creaky air traffic control system is slated to get a $12.5 billion down payment for a much-needed upgrade, a move aimed at preventing the kind of travel chaos we've seen in recent years. However, to offset some of this spending and to enact policy changes, the bill takes a sharp turn on social programs and environmental policy. It introduces new, stricter work requirements for people receiving SNAP benefits, commonly known as food stamps, and for some adults on Medicaid. States will also be forced to speed up their process for verifying incomes to ensure only eligible people are on Medicaid. On the environmental front, the bill walks back many of the clean energy tax credits that were part of the Inflation Reduction Act, dialing down financial incentives for things like wind, solar, and electric vehicles. While some last-minute compromises were made to soften the blow to renewables, the overall direction is a clear pivot away from green energy initiatives. Now, if you listen to the bill's supporters, they'll tell you we are on the verge of an economic renaissance. Their main argument is that by making the tax cuts from 2017 permanent, especially the lower corporate tax rate and full expensing for businesses, the government is unleashing the animal spirits of the American economy. The logic is simple. When businesses have to pay less in taxes, they have more money left over. They can use that extra cash to expand their operations, build new factories, buy new equipment, and most importantly, hire more workers. The Tax Foundation, a right-leaning think tank, projects that making full expensing permanent alone could boost the country's long-term GDP by over 1%, which translates to a lot of new economic activity. Beyond the big-picture economic arguments, proponents point to the very real, tangible relief the bill provides for American households. The increased and fully refundable child tax credit is presented as a major lifeline for working families, helping them cover the rising costs of raising children, from diapers and food to childcare. The new deduction for tipped and overtime workers is framed as a long-overdue thank you to the backbone of the service industry. And for the nation's seniors, the new $6,000 deduction on retirement income is championed as a way to ensure they can live their golden years with more dignity and financial security, protecting their fixed incomes from being eroded by taxes. These provisions are designed to put more money directly into people's pockets. Supporters also emphasize that the bill makes critical investments in the nation's security and infrastructure. The $150 billion for defense modernization is cast as a necessary step to keep America safe in an increasingly dangerous world, ensuring our military has the cutting-edge technology it needs. The $46 billion for the border is promoted as a firm commitment to getting control of illegal immigration and securing the nation's frontiers. Meanwhile, investments like the $50 billion for rural hospitals and the $12.5 billion to fix our air traffic control system are highlighted as practical, common-sense spending that addresses real problems affecting everyday Americans, from healthcare access in small towns to safety in the skies. Finally, those in favor of the bill argue that the changes to social programs like Medicaid and SNAP are not about punishing the poor, but about promoting work and eliminating fraud. President Trump has repeatedly claimed his goal is to cut waste, fraud, and abuse from the system. The argument is that requiring able-bodied adults to work or participate in job training in exchange for benefits encourages self-sufficiency and ensures that taxpayer-funded programs are reserved for those who truly cannot provide for themselves. By tightening eligibility and verification, supporters believe they are preserving these safety nets for the long term, making them more sustainable and restoring public faith in the system. Of course, for every sunny promise, critics see a gathering storm cloud. The most glaring issue for opponents is the price tag. According to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, this bill is projected to add a staggering $3 trillion to the national debt over the next decade. That's not a small number. It's a mountain of debt that future generations will have to pay off. Critics argue that while the bill raises the debt ceiling to kick the can down the road, it does nothing to address the underlying problem. They warn that such a massive increase in borrowing could lead to higher interest rates for everyone, making it more expensive to buy a car, a house, or even pay off a credit card. Another major criticism is that the benefits of the bill are heavily skewed towards the wealthy and large corporations, while the cuts fall hardest on low-income Americans. The permanent tax cuts for corporations and the wealthy, along with the increased SALT deduction cap that primarily benefits high earners in high-tax states, are seen as giveaways to those who need them the least. At the same time, the new work requirements for Medicaid and SNAP are predicted to have a devastating impact. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that up to 10.9 million people could lose their health insurance due to these changes. Opponents argue this isn't about cutting waste, it's about taking away essential healthcare and food assistance from the most vulnerable people in the country. The bill's environmental policies are another huge point of contention. By rolling back clean energy tax credits from the Inflation Reduction Act, critics say the bill is actively undermining America's efforts to combat climate change and transition to a green economy. While supporters claim they are simply cutting wasteful spending, opponents see it as a dangerous step backward that will cede leadership in renewable technology to other countries and lock the United States into a fossil fuel-dependent future. The decision to cut support for wind, solar, and electric vehicles is seen as short-sighted, ignoring the long-term economic and environmental costs of inaction on climate change. Finally, there's the risk of higher prices for consumers. To help pay for some of the tax cuts, the bill relies in part on increased tariffs on imported goods. Critics, including many economists, warn that tariffs are essentially a tax on American consumers. When the government puts a tariff on foreign steel, for example, the cost of making cars and appliances in the United States goes up, and that cost is often passed directly on to you, the buyer. This could lead to higher prices on a wide range of goods from food to electronics, potentially fueling inflation and canceling out any financial benefits that families might receive from the tax cuts. So, the central question remains, is this big beautiful bill a bold recipe for American prosperity, or is it a risky gamble that America simply cannot afford? The answer will define the nation for years to come.